29. 29. The chick comes out from egg shell. After 21 days of hatch by the hens, the yolk and egg white inside the egg turn into chick. Before it comes out of the shell, the chick has no connection with the world. Then how does it come out of the shell? From whom it learned the skills of breaking the shell. The chick's dad is busy all day chasing after hens and thus never cares the chick's life or death. Even if the chick's mom keeps complaining to the chick's dad for not attending to housework and raising the chick's dad can find many excuses. How can you be sure that I am the dad of this little thing? Just last month I saw you hanging about with the roosters in the neighborhood. Surely the dad did not teach the chick skills to break the shell. Then can it be the mother who teaches the skills of breaking the shell? No, instead of teaching the chick to break the shell, it will be much easier and less troublesome for her to break the shell herself. Then who has taught the chick? Who has told the chick that the world outside is colorful? How does the chick know that his delicate beak can break the shell? Why the shell is thick enough to protect the chick and thin enough for the chick to break? There is only one answer: instinct. Instinct is not evolved. It is innate. In another word, the first chick hatched from the first egg laid by the first hen on the earth already knew that its world is outside the shell, that the shell is thin enough for its little beak to break. Of course, it is not the consciousness. When the time comes, it just pecks at it until it breaks. Well, out of instinct, and that the first chick hatched from the first egg on the earth without any genetic information, then there is nothing we can do but ask the greatest creator. A. 30. What is the secret of birds' migration? As a young child, I used to see flocks of wild geese fly in the blue sky in my homeland in the late summer and early autumn. Just as described in the textbook of primary school, autumn is coming and it is getting cooler. A flock of wild geese is flying southward, sometimes in the formation of the fork and sometimes in a line. One day at the turn of the rainy and the dry season this year, I was queuing at a service station in Zimbabwe where petrol was in short supply. Suddenly some noises in the sky caught my attention. I looked out of the car window and spotted a dozen crow-like birds perched on a large tree not very far. They flapped their wings and quacked and cawed. Out of curiosity and boredom, I began to watch them, figuring that they must be holding a meeting and discussing the implementation of a certain project. Unexpectedly, however, their callings attracted more and more birds of the same species from all directions. In less than half an hour, nearly 1,000 birds had gathered. Suddenly they flew away from the big tree and hovered and rose higher and higher in the sky. I wondered whether they were holding a party in this manner of hovering. Or were they selecting Miss International with the most elegant flight? I came out of the car and stood on the lawn beside the road watching them. They were hovering higher and higher in the sky until they looked smaller and smaller. I wondered, are they competing for flying the highest? Unexpectedly, the birds that flew the highest suddenly flew northwest along a straight line. The others were still circling, but they also flew along the same straight line when they reached the same height, as if they had boarded a train and rode away along the fixed railway. I finally came to realize after a hard thought that those must be migratory birds. At the beginning they clambered on the tree to hail the flock to fly together to a distant place. Later they flew by hovering in order to increase the altitude. When they reached a certain height, they met an air current. It helped them to fly to the distant place more easily. Oh, how clever the migratory birds are. After returning home, I checked up some documents about migratory birds and discovered more surprising facts. For example, Arctic terns build nests in the Arctic Circle. They fly to the South Pole at the turn of summer and autumn. They fly back to the North Pole in the next year. Every year they travel for 35,200 kilometers. There is an oriole called Blackpoll warbler, small in size and weighs only 20-odd grams. Before autumn comes, it flies from Alaska, America to the east coast of Canada or New England, where it feasts on all the dainty food to increase its fat and strength. Then when it is turning cold, it begins a long journey of flight, first toward Africa, over the Atlantic Ocean, then after taking over an air current it turns to Brazil of South America. The whole journey is in the Arctic Circle. They fly to the South Pole at the turn of summer and autumn. They fly back to the North Pole in the next year. Every year they travel for 35,200 kilometers. There is an oriole called Blackpoll warbler, small in size and weighs only 20-odd grams. Before autumn comes, it flies from Alaska, America to the east coast of Canada or New England, where it feasts on all the dainty food to increase its fat and strength. Then when it is turning cold, it begins a long journey of flight, first toward Africa, over the Atlantic Ocean, then after taking over an air current it turns to Brazil of South America. The whole journey is 3,840 kilometers at an altitude of more than 6,000 meters. The flight lasts 4 days and 4 nights. The white storks in Europe fly 12,800 kilometers to spend the winter in South Africa. The long-tail cuckoos in New Zealand fly 6,400 kilometers to spend the winter in the Pacific Islands. Seagulls in England's Isle of Man fly from Wales to Brazil at over 700 kilometers a day for 16 consecutive days. The wild geese fly over the Himalayas mountains at an altitude of 9,000 meters. What is more incredible is that generally the older generations of cuckoos start their journey earlier. Smaller cuckoos usually start their migration a few days later. Unaccompanied by their parents, small cuckoos make their first flight to a strange place and can fly to their destination honorably and unite with their parents. On the contrary, young starlings set off earlier than their parents and reach their destination all by themselves. Marvelous! Incredible! I wonder how they know that the cold weather is coming. How do they know which day is suitable for flight? How do they know that there was an air current at an altitude of thousands meters? How do they know that this air current would carry them to their desired place? How do they know that that remote place is now a time of spring and flowers with sufficient food? What power had propelled them to embark upon such an epic journey across oceans? How do they travel round trip without going astray? How do they identify directions while flying? How do they find their habitat without accompanied and guided by their parents? I searched for scientists' explanations and found the following 4 major answers. Something like a biological clock inside the migratory bird can sense the upcoming cold and the appropriate time to take off, and can calculate the position of the sun while flying in the sky and determine its direction and route of flying by continuously adjusting the angle between itself and the sun or stars with the help of the sun, the moon, and the stars. An inherent meteorologist, migratory birds can determine the duration of life at the habitat and the time of migration according to such meteorological conditions as temperature, lighting, wind direction, and rainfall. They can choose a sunny day to begin their flight, adjust their flying manner according to the changes and fluctuations of wind directions and barometric pressures, and make use of the ascending air current for gliding to save their energy. Extremely sensitive to geomagnetic waves, migratory birds can identify their directions according to geomagnetic waves and can decide the time of migration and habitat according to the geomagnetic information known to them. Through millions of years of evolution, birds have gradually realized the rules governing the seasonal changes of climates and have formed a fixed pattern through generations of accumulation of experience and passed on the genetic information to each succeeding generation. All the 4 explanations above seem reasonable, but a deeper analysis may discover that they are whimsical and fantastic talk. According to the first explanation, it seems that migratory birds can calculate their own positions, identify their direction, and derive the direction and route of flight according to the position of the sun. Then, how about the air current at an altitude of thousands meters? Migratory birds calculate it as well? While migratory birds are far more intelligent than Einstein. A brain the size of a little finger can calculate the direction of the air current at an altitude of thousands meters in the sky without any instruments and measurements. It is too whimsical that birds can calculate the direction during the flight without the use of compasses, theodolites, boxes and needles, and calculators. This is rather absurd. According to the second explanation, migratory birds are born meteorologists who can take off on a sunny day by choosing different climatic conditions. Thus, they are far brighter than all the scientists and engineers in the meteorological bureaus in the world. The problem is, in abnormal weather, when the area of migratory birds is inflicted with consecutive days of cloudy or rainy weather, the birds would have no choice but to miss the air current in the sky and wait for the arrival of the cold current. And what awaits them will certainly be death. When swallows return from migration every spring, they can always return accurately to the nests they built the year before. It is said that the swallows in a small town in America always return at the dawn of March 29th in the following year. How shall we explain this? The third explanation is a little mythical. Migratory birds can identify the direction through geomagnetic waves and can decide the time of migration and habitat according to the geomagnetic information known to them. Are we sure that migratory birds can get to know the existence of air current at an altitude of thousands meters as per the geomagnetic waves? How can they fly to the place where they stayed the year before instead of other places simply with the help of geomagnetic waves? The fourth explanation is a typical theory of evolution and seems flawless. As we have known from the chick's breaking of eggshell described in the above section, the theory of evolution has been proved untenable in this aspect by the fact that the first chick hatched from the first egg laid by the first hen on the earth could break the shell without the inheritance of any genetic information and shell-breaking skills. Then is the theory tenable when it comes to migratory birds? Based on the radioactive isotope determination method, scientists believed the Earth is 4.6 billion years old, animals appeared about 1.8 billion years ago, invertebrates about 4.38 billion years ago, fish about 3.80 billion years ago, amphibians about 2.9 billion years ago, and reptiles about 2.45 billion years ago. Dinosaurs died out about 1.35 billion years ago. Mammals appeared around 65 million years ago, and man appeared about 1.6 million years ago. First, let's not question the method of radioactive isotope measurement and suppose the method is accurate. Then birds must have lived on Earth for a few billion years. If the birds are clever enough to pass on to the next generation the information that enable them to identify the directions, choose the favorable habitats, fly from the North Pole to the South Pole, take advantage of the air current for flight in the sky, and accurately find the place where their former generations have stayed, then why haven't they evolved into even more advanced animals in the period of a few billion years but are overtaken by humans who have rendered them inescapable from their air guns and the nets cast over them? Are they unwilling to go on with the evolution? Or are they suddenly stuck in the middle of evolution? If we don't believe in the greatest creator, we can only think randomly. The question of whether egg has appeared before the chick or the chick has appeared before egg will remain a mystery for another 10,000 years. Well, I would say migration of migratory birds is that everything in nature has their definite purposes and means of subsistence and that they each has features irreplaceable by other species. Otherwise, all will die out. What will happen if a tiger can both reign supreme in the mountain and soar in the sky? What if a mouse can dig holes and build nests on the tree? What if antelopes live on both grass and other animals? What if dogs can bear puppies and lay eggs? What if apple trees can produce both apples and watermelons? Wow! It's really amazing! The answer for migratory birds' migration is instinct, just like bees that build honeycombs with a rhombus bottom consisting of 109.28 degrees obtuse angles and 70.32 degrees acute angles. What is instinct? (31a) 31. Animals' instincts, revelation of the wisdom of the greatest creator. That roosters can crow, bees can build honeycombs, chicks can break eggshells, and migratory birds can migrate does not mean that these animals possess very great wisdom or are good at learning and summarizing experiences. Their instincts are the revelation of the greatest creator that has created them. Besides the above examples of instincts, there are many other instances. Termites can build air-conditioned nests. Many fishes can discharge electricity. An American eel can discharge electricity of 880 volts. Fireflies can produce light. Dragonflies can rise vertically or make design fly in the air. Turtles can lay their eggs in the warm sand for them to hatch, to protect themselves. Chameleons can change the colors of their bodies at will, and bats can locate food via sonar in pitch darkness. Mollusks like snails have a tough home to protect themselves. Now let's have a look at the bird's skill in nest building. An African weaver bird in particular can select soft twigs and grass to build an apartment that holds snakes at bay and keeps water from leaking in. Silkworms can spin silk, spiders can weave webs, and homing pigeons can locate their own nests. The ants are capable of well-organized and well-planned collective activities. Worms can restore itself if one part of their bodies are cut off. The military dogs have extremely sensitive olfactions. All these are the embodiment of animals' instincts, which are not results of millions of years of evolution but have existed the very moment the animals appear on the earth. If we attribute the instincts of animals to the wisdom and talents of animals without looking for their creator behind them, then it is as if we are seeing planes flying in the sky and marvel at the wisdom and cleverness of the plane, neglecting the wisdom and talents of the manufacturer of the plane. Why don't we say that alarm clocks are wise and clever in keeping good time and giving correct time? Why don't we say that inductive missiles possess wisdom? Why don't we say that the computers are incomparably wise and intelligent while they can search millions of pieces related information in a few microseconds? Why don't we say that robots, radios, televisions, and video cameras are clever and smart? Because we know that they don't possess wisdom and talents themselves but only reflect the wisdom and talents of their creators behind them. Then why don't we attribute the instincts of animals and plants to the greatest creator that makes them? Millions of scientists all over the world are racking their brains and investing a huge amount of manpower and money to explore the talent and wisdom of animals and plants. Have they found the root of the question? I can say for sure that if we don't look through the phenomena and investigate the power behind them, we will be seeing only the moon reflected in the water instead of seeing the real one hanging in the sky. And we will remain completely ignorant even if we are given another 100,000s of years. When seeing a robot at work, a dog may think that the robot must be extremely intelligent and wise. The reason is that the dog does not know that the robot is made by man. Then why do we think that the weaver bird is unfathomably clever when seeing it build nests on a branch? Are we different from dogs in thinking? "32. 32. Celestial beauty scattering flowers, the stunt of dandelions. I remember that when I was young there used to be clumps of dandelions growing beside the aqueducts, on the ridges of fields, and on waste grasslands in my hometown. We called them spur arrowroot, and a traditional Chinese medicine doctor called them thistle. They can be used as medicine. A perennial herb, dandelions have yellow or aubergine flowers. When the flower seeds are ripe, on the crown will grow many white flocky umbrella-shaped silky strands. With a small wind, these umbrella-shaped silky strands will carry the flower seeds and fly to a distance. My most unforgettable memory of dandelions is when I plucked a handful of flower seeds with my young playmates and placed them close to the mouth and puffed at them vehemently to see whose flower seeds can fly the highest. The blown flower seeds are like several hundreds of paratroopers who jump simultaneously off the plane. The scene is very spectacular. One day while we were enjoying ourselves when Grandma asked us, "Look, why do these flower seeds have hair on their ends?" The answer is worthy of a piece of rock candy. Looking at each other, none of us knew the answer. My grandma said, "The hairs on the end of the flower seeds of spur arrowroot are to carry the seeds to a more distant place when the hairs fly with wind. If they fall to the original place, all the seeds will grow in the same place the following year and the family will be too crowded." Oh, this turns out to be the secret. In nature, plants have a great many ways to spread their seeds. I think dandelions are the smartest. It grows hairs so that one can scatter their seeds to a faraway place. The design is ingenious and unique and can be called a stunt in this aspect. Another plant looks a little like Siberian cocklebur, of which the leaves resemble the donkey's ears in size and shape, so is also called donkey's ear by my vernacular. I remember once my elder cousin was infuriated when he sheared for about a dozen sheep at home. Why? Because there were a lot of Siberian cocklebur attached to the sheep's wool. In each Siberian cocklebur there were about 30 bristles, and on the top of the bristle was a barb. The barbs had tightly grabbed the sheep's wool, and it was extremely difficult to take them off and had to be torn off one by one. Look, the plants that look like Siberian cocklebur are also very clever. They use barbs to clutch at anything that they come up with so that their own children can be brought to a distant place to expand their territory of growth. I can remember another time when my wife and I went on a trip to a lakeside. We drove from Harare. After driving along Bulawayo for more than 40 kilometers and turning left for more than 10 kilometers, we could see the lake. We parked the car at the campsite beside the lake and walked along the grass clumps on the lakeside. We had to stop after walking for only 20 minutes. It turned out that the woolen skirt of my wife was covered with thousands of grass seeds, whose names I did not know. From one side of the seed stuck out a forked burr which has a barb on its top. The barbs hitched the wools of the skirt and could not be got rid of by shaking or by brushing. We had no choice but to return to the campsite, where we spent nearly 2 hours taking them off one by one. Look, the grass also has its skills to diffuse its offspring. In addition to the methods of seed diffusion employed by dandelions, Siberian cocklebur, and grass, I have also seen another way of plant seed spreading. When I lived in room number 11 next door to Bulgarian embassy to Harare, There was a plant in the garden, I don't know its name, looks like a small tree. One day I accidentally spotted mini walnut-sized fruits on the plant. Out of curiosity, I picked one from the tree. Before I peeled it, it had exploded. With the explosion, dozens of seeds were ejected. It turned out that these fruit-like things have only a very thin husk. Inside them was air. When they were inflated with air, they will blow up automatically and eject the seeds from inside. Look, the plant each has its own magic powers in spreading its seeds. Have they themselves figured out all these wonderful methods of seed diffusion? Can the theory of evolution offer an explanation? Aren't these stunts designed by the someone who has created them?